Welcome to Canadian Innovators, the show that celebrates innovation, entrepreneurs, and the Canadian spirit. I'm Jocelyn, and every week we introduce a new entrepreneur or expert on the economy to tell their stories and unpack the challenges of keeping jobs in Canada, as well as discuss potential solutions for job growth and prosperity. Today on the program, we delve into the results of the Ontario election, federal policy, and the upcoming U.S. midterms and their impacts on the economy and small and medium-sized business. Joining me to discuss is one of the foremost Canadian experts on all things political, Georganne Burke, Senior Vice President, Pathwaygroup Inc. Welcome to the program, Georganne. It's great to have you.
It's so great to be with you today also, Jocelyn.
So, Georganne, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a dual citizen of the U.S. and Canada. I guess that kind of gives me some street cred with politics in both countries. I moved here with my family in 1987. Have lived in Canada, been very involved in politics in Canada, certainly since the late 90s. I work for the Pathwaygroup as the Senior Vice President. It's a government relations group based in Toronto. And I also have stayed very active and involved in politics even after I left Parliament Hill. I was on Parliament Hill and in federal politics for over 10 years and did provincial politics in between for a number of years as well. So I thoroughly enjoy discussing these things. I like to look at the future through a political lens and also through a non-political lens.
So you've got a great background, I know from looking at your history, but what pulled you into politics? What was the driver?
So I'm going to blame my really hardcore left-wing husband. He's a Bernie bro. He's the one that got me involved in politics when I was in university, when I met him. I was always kind of interested, but never really did much of anything until I was 18 or 19 years old. I got involved in university politics first, and then ultimately City of Buffalo politics, which is where we lived. I ran campaigns there, worked for city councilors, and got very involved in politics. By the way, Democratic, very left-wing Democratic politics in the U.S.
Yeah, so you must have interesting dinner conversations at your house. But Georganne, let's get right into the election. Landslide election for the Ford government. What are your thoughts?
So I'm hesitant to refer to it as a landslide election. The numbers of him winning 83 seats and 40 whatever percent of the popular vote is all very nice. The problem is that the voter participation rate was extremely low, probably the lowest we've had in decades in Ontario. Therefore, he was really only elected by 18% of the population. We use this argument all the time when the Liberals have the same kind of outcome, but all of a sudden it's not okay to talk about it when it applies to us. I remind people that in 2014, Kathleen Wynne won a majority government with very low voter turnout, very similar to this election. And you saw what happened to her in 2018. So if I were the Ford government, I wouldn't be overly confident about this outcome. I would be a little concerned that they maybe need to understand what kept voters away from the polls. And I don't think it was overwhelming satisfaction with the way things have been in the past, particularly 2.5 years in Ontario and in Canada.
I couldn't agree more. There was a lot of concern with the base and not being very happy. But what do you attribute to this victory, if you could pinpoint one or two things?
Well, I would say that obviously they did a good job getting their voters out as compared to the other team. They can thank God that the other two parties, the two major parties, had terrible leaders. One who was a 4-time loser now and is on her way out. The other, who is a mystery to me, is how he was ever selected to be leader of the Liberal Party. He is so not typical of the Liberals' self-image, let alone, someone who could really lead the party. And it had no charisma, no personality. And as we know, that's a big deal to Liberals. So it's hard for me to understand how they even put this guy there. So that was, I think, another factor, that there just was no motivation on the part of the other side to get their vote out. They had a lot of trouble. They lost seats of kind of people that have been around a long time in politics in both parties. The leader of the Liberal Party lost his own seat to the incumbent, Michael Tobolo. I don't know that that was such a huge surprise, but I would say that 6 weeks ago, they didn't think that was going to happen.
So we need to take a quick break. I'm going to stop you there. We'll be right back on Canadian Innovators.